FTP is the most overrated thing that triathletes are obsessed with. It couldn't be any more overrated. We've talked about this on a couple of different podcasts. I have athletes do them on occasion, but they are not even close to the end all be all result that most people say they are. Especially if you were doing long course racing.
Good morning, Coach Robbie.
Hey, dude. Good morning. How are you, buddy?
Oh man, I'm just meandering my way through this pandemic maze.
Meandering your way. Hey, well, I don't think there's a right or a wrong way to get your way through it, but hey, we are. We are making it. Today's Thursday, April 30th. It's basically May 2020. And hey, welcome aboard Crushing Iron Podcast, episode 369.
369, man.
I don't know why, but it feels like forever ago we did Monday's podcast. I don't know why it feels that way. The week hasn't like crept by like slowly or anything, but it has. I don't know, for some weird reason. I was like hopping on. I was like, I don't even remember what we talked about on Monday, and I had to actually go back and look. Um, and just kind of see like what was going on and what we talked about. But yeah, we're here and
Care to
we
give me a briefing?
No, I don't. Indicator, but it was one of our. Wait, we got. I don't say we got a little bit deep, but we go on rants, and obviously, if it's your first time listening, we appreciate you tuning in. But we cover a lot of things. We cover a lot of things triathlon, and we cover a lot of things life. It's about a 50-50 split, I think, in terms of what we cover and how much we cover. But we cover the things that are on our mind personally. We cover the things that are going through our athletes' minds that we work with. Mike and I are both coaches and athletes ourselves, and really just kind of go with the pulse of our athlete community, our team, and then also the community that we have on Facebook. We have a closed Facebook group called Crushing Iron Group. You can always hop in there, search it on Facebook. We'll let you in after one simple question. But that's it. And I think right now with everything going on, it's nice to be diverse like that, not feeling we have to talk about gels and special transition moves to kind of get us through a cast. But yeah, we talked about I think feeling your way through triathlon on Monday and measuring yourself and how to not measure yourself with times and paces and showing yourself grace. And those are some of our kind of our core values in general, just to be a good person and most importantly, be a good person to yourself. I think that's like one of the biggest issues a lot of athletes have is that they're just so incredibly hard on themselves. Like they get into the sport to be healthy, yet they find every possible way to criticize themselves and create more negative self-talk with not meeting expectations or missing runs or missing rides and oh my god, I got a red on my training peaks or whatever it is, and like it's a really interesting relationship so many athletes have with what is supposed to be a very positive and uplifting and healthy sport that can literally change your life. It can not only change your life from a health standpoint and make you an incredibly or a much healthier version of yourself, whether it's losing weight or lowering your blood pressure or all those things. But it can also be incredibly rewarding mentally and emotionally about what it can teach you that you can do, and then what it can prove you wrong that you once thought that you couldn't. I find it fascinating of how many athletes that you don't ever see these on Facebook. Everyone wants to post their greatness of every single day and everyone's crushing life, but as a coach that reads comments and gets feedback and communicates with athletes, like that's one of the biggest one of my kind of the main things that I have as a job is to help athletes navigate that relationship and that negative self-talk to hopefully get them to see themselves in a more positive light, but also just to frankly be kind to themselves. We should always be our own biggest fan. I don't think that's cocky. I don't think that's showing too much self-confidence. But we're always going to be there for ourselves. Till the day we die. We are the one constant that we are always going to have, no matter what. And we should always be our number one fan. We should always support ourselves. We should always find the positive. And that was a little bit what it was about. And that was a small little rant, I guess. But um, yeah, there you go. Cliff notes.
Uh,
Boom.
oh, wait, yeah, a little summary
Yes, summary, slash crash pad.
Yeah, man. It's funny you bring that up. I find lately it's weird. I mean, obviously, I feel like the less I read, the happier I am sometimes. It's like, I mean, there's obviously good books and things that have taken time to write and, thought goes into them and things like that. I just feel like so much that's put out there in our face every day is just kind
Hmm.
of random off the tops, and it can be really daunting. Like I just decided, I can't, man. Like there's thoughts I have on what's going on, and I try to like read a lot about different sides, but there's so much duality in the world, and it's such extreme that you really can't. It's hard. It's definitely hard in the typical daily sources of people to find sort of a balanced perspective on anything. So um, I just don't know what to say about that, except you're right. You have to. It all comes back to you, and you have to
Does,
make your
man.
own decision, and you can't control that. That's the beauty of it, I think, is that even like, I don't know, man. I read somebody posted an article about what Iron Man's doing, and there was all these weird guesses about how it could be and what it might look like and all
Was it
this
was
type
it
of thing.
was it that New York Times article?
I didn't read that one. I read the one in
Good.
Triathlon or
I read
Competitor.
I read the Triathlon magazine. The New York Times article was the longest article that said absolutely nothing I've ever read in my entire life.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Well,
the
I
title,
kind of felt like that
as
about the other
typical
one.
articles go, it was like the headline was totally misleading. It said something about how Iron Man plans to endure. There were zero plans in the article. Zero.
Mm.
It was more just commentary. It was super annoying. Can't believe I wasted my time reading it. But I did read the triathlon article, triathlete magazine article this morning. Um, but hey, we're all doing our best, and if you're out there and you're beating yourself up or you're giving yourself a hard time, and or you're unhappy with where you are, or that you're unmotivated, or you don't feel like you can commit, and you're comparing yourself to so many other people's lives, and just remember that one thing: everything in life is relative. Everything. We all live in our own reality. And just because you feel like you should be doing better because somebody else who you think has it harder and they seem to be doing better, that you beat yourself, because you hear that a lot, and especially right now when I think we like to use these kind of negative conversations with ourselves to kind of eh, almost hardship our way into making ourselves do better or be better, or why aren't we overcoming, like, so and so, Billy down the street, he's lost his job yet he's out here, walking his dog every day and doing stuff with his kids, and he just seems to be doing really well, and he's got it so much rougher, than I do. Why can't I be that way? I think we hear a lot of, or I hear a lot of that from athletes that are very thankful that they have jobs and are doing this. Like, I just don't know, I should be more grateful. It's like everything is relative. Our own life will always be the hardest life to navigate because it's our own, and it means different things to us, and it means different things to other people. And I think it's all about the lens that you and how you look through it. And I think every day has its own challenges in terms of how we look through it and what might interfere with our vision and how we see ourselves or how we see our life or our own reality. But that's it. It really is that simple, and that's why I hate then when people judge people or complain about other things. It's like everyone has their own reality. Everything that we say, this podcast is based on you and I's personal realities. And people can gravitate towards that because they find comfort in it because it probably meshes their own reality, so they find it comforting, or they might see it as contradictory and might think I can grow from that, or they listen to it and they think this is the worst reality ever. I hate this. 1 star. Bye. See you later. But that's it. That's also what you can't be offended by. So many things that people love to get offended about is, everyone has their own perception based on their own reality. We
Yeah.
all live in our own. We live in one world, but we all have our own world. And I just think that's important to remember.
It is. Did you have any other thoughts on that article? I mean, like, there's really nothing
No, I didn't. I mean, it
positive
was
to
like
talk about with that.
it's. Well, I mean, I think there's positives in everything. I mean, I think, but right now everything is guessing, and I hate guessing.
I
I
do too, dude. I
I
mean, it
just
really bums me out to even think about,
I you know
like, the worst case scenario type shit.
Yeah, that's why I think, we're all doing stuff week to week. We're doing the best we can, and but I will say this, and I said this yesterday on on our weekly kind of Zoom athlete call was that, these big races, small and large, they're all businesses first. They're businesses, and they are working tirelessly 24 hours a day to keep their own jobs alive, to find a way. So if you think that they're just not trying, then you only see these race management companies, even the small mom and pop ones that maybe put on 1 or 2 races a year locally. They're working their butts off right now to find a way to provide an experience, an event where you feel comfortable doing that's also healthy and safe, to keep their livelihood there, so they can be around in the coming months when they can offer it again under more normal circumstances. Everyone is working hard to find a way. And I think that's just important for us to all remember.
Yeah, I agree. Well, that's a really good way to look at it, I think, is that that's sort of a faith element that we have to kind of just let go of and believe in. I was actually up a little early today and I just started writing about like kind of, I'm 56 and I've been through, I mean, we've all been through, a lot of us have been through the same stuff, but I was kind of writing back to, I was trying to think back to like, when I was in college, actually, when the HIV stuff started coming out,
Mm,
and like, it was really interesting because I was like, wow, man, the similar feelings, it wasn't as prolific in society. Well, it was in a way, but it wasn't like this like constant, media barrage, and it wasn't like, quarantine driven or anything like that, but it was a big fear. And I just remember, hanging out like with some buddies, like in college,
mm-hmm.
and we're like, we had no idea
Right?
what was going on. It was freaking us out. I mean, I remember thinking about that. Like, we were just sitting there, probably, I think, remember one night we were in a bar, just like 3 or 4 of us just sitting there going, man, this could be the end of the world or whatever, because like
I know, dude.
it was like something that went through me. And I was like, well, really, there was nothing we could do.
Right.
And, I don't want to say it's worked out, but it kind of like, it's just, it's just life was, it's sort of, I felt like that with 9/11, like it would change everything too. I was kind of writing about that, and it was like, man, right after that, it was like, man, our world is different now, and I kind
It
of feel that
is.
same thing. And it is, and it is, and it, if you have faith that like everyone is sort of like trying at the core to make it the best that we can make it, and come out of this, maybe better, or
Oh,
in,
for sure, dude.
that's,
Everyone is growing right now. Whether you know it or not, everyone is growing right
hmm
now in some way. And I think that we have to give credit. If you look around us and look at the amazing abilities that we have as humans, that we have proven, while we can obviously do incredibly stupid and asinine things, that the human spirit is one of the most resilient things on this planet. That people and humans, businesses, individuals, families, whatever, people find a way. People will move on. People will adapt. People will create things like, and it's like we always think that there's like this once in a lifetime thing. There's always going to be something every 10, 15, 20 years, whatever it is. 9/11, I remember exactly where I was when that happened. Obviously, I think a lot of people do, is like the world is going to change. You're never going to look at life the same way, or these things happen. Obviously it's more severe for other people, but life continues to go on, and we figure a way out to keep moving and to do different things, and we'll do the same thing with this.
hmm
did
Yeah,
uh did you have a topic for today?
that was kind of it.
Oh, was it?
Well, I mean,
No, we appreciate you tuning in. That was episode
uh,
369 of the Crushing Our Podcast. I didn't have one. I usually have like a bunch,
yeah. Well,
but I actually tossed in to the old closed group in Crushing Iron and just said, "Hey, we're about to record in 5 or 10 minutes. If you guys got any questions, toss them in. We'll do our best
oh,
to answer them live."
the,
Uh,
the old
hey,
reach
use our
out.
best resource, man. They
Oh, I
are
know.
Our community is our best resource, and we say this all the time. I even said it at the beginning of the podcast. Like, the pulse of our community always has like the general undertone of the entire triathlon community. And so I always feel it's always good. Hey, it's always good to hear from your people. and those people are our people. They are listeners. They've been with us for a long time. They always ask wonderful questions. They're always often insightful. And if one person asks a question and we answer it, we know we're also not just answering it for this one person. We know we're answering a question that a lot of people probably have, or that we haven't thought of. Like, we've been in the sport for a very long time. And sometimes I think, and I have to remind myself too, as a coach, and I'm probably not that great at all the time, is I'm like, why would you ask that? And then I think, okay, I've been doing this for 15 years.
Oh yeah,
I've
it's huge.
seen or heard everything, and it's like, and I remember back in the day where I knew absolutely nothing, like I was basically an idiot. And so I love doing them. But I can basically just comment right now if you want me to, and just say, Mike says he has a different topic. You guys suck. Check you Monday.
No, I don't have a different topic.
Okay. So,
I like that. I mean, I think that's important too, to keep that pulse on what people are talking about and thinking about, because, I mean, we can create our own worlds and just go off into the sunset, but it's important. I mean, we've always banked on, the people we coach, and I mean, it's like, we
there's
do
some
our
good.
own thing, but they are the guide.
That's it. They're the guiding light. And hey, watching a sunset is never really fun while you're alone. It's always fun with people. First question from what I would consider a Crushing Iron podcast OG, Clay Seal. In any context, what is the best thing you've seen during this quarantine? Netflix movie, a charity, a creative business, etc.
Oh, you're gonna ask me first?
Yeah, go, buddy.
Uh, that's a tough one, dude.
I know, dude. It's a good one though, but it's tough. You want me to go first?
Yeah, because I'm on a I have I'm trying to get through a little negative patch here.
Oh boy. All right. Well, let's just sit
Sorry.
back, relax, have your espresso, and I'll drive this train today, buddy.
No, no,
Uh,
no. I don't need you to drive the train. It's just this one here. I
okay.
need to
Well,
dig a little bit
I'll
right
be the
now.
locomotive. You be the caboose. This was an easy one for me. We, I don't know. I think it's been 3 or 4 weeks ago when the economy started to like really, really drop, and people were. I mean, everybody knows someone. You either are that someone, or your family, or your spouse, a relative. Somebody has had someone very, very close to them be impacted very harshly by the economy, with furlough, job loss, uncertainty, businesses that are in crisis. And so when I think it was towards the end of March when this was all happening, and that's when we kind of usually send out our monthly. Most of our athletes are pay ahead of time, but it was like we put this out there that you're up for renewal. And anyway, a couple athletes responded and were like, hey, you know, I have, I've lost my job. I don't know when I'm going to go back. I can't really afford to continue coaching, but I want to stay active. Had another athlete, this one specifically, I won't mention his name because he would hate it because he's super humble. But he said, hey, I know I'm up for my annual renewal. We have a rental property that we have, and the people that live there, they've lost their jobs and they can't afford to live there anymore. So they can't afford to pay rent, so we're covering it so they can still have a place to stay. And so it just doesn't seem fiscally responsible for me to use that money right now. And obviously, you and I, our first response is, okay, well, you do that for them, we'll do this for you.
Mm-hmm.
And we just kind of decided that no one right now, for any reason, is going to lose the opportunity to be coached, to have the same training that they've always had, not downgraded, not just on training plan, but to be given the exact thing that they need all the time while we're going through this. And we put an email out to the team and just said, hey, just as a heads up, just to cover any kind of uncomfortable conversation you might feel, if you feel humiliated or you feel like it's not, that could be asking for something, that no matter what, to go ahead and kind of that conversation off of what might be uncomfortable, was that we will take care of you no matter what. That during this time, we will take care of you no matter what, and we will figure it out as we go. And then once you get back on your feet, then we just continue on from there. You don't need to pay anything back. You don't need to get backdated. You just move on. If you don't get your job back till September, then we'll start back in September, but you don't owe any money. We put that out to the team, and we had the like the most insane response from athletes that donated some of their own money to cover other costs or to kind of sit in what we call like our C26 reserve to cover people who are going through hardships, to whether it's camps, whether it's training, whatever. That to me, obviously it's a little biased, but it was incredibly humbling to have, a lot of athletes ask like, how is it to work with, or I think people don't understand that 95% of the athletes that we work with don't even live in the same state. They live across the country and sometimes across the world. And they ask, how can you coach people that are across the world and not be right there for them? I think obviously people are figuring out now that you can do a lot of things not being right there with the person. But the biggest aspect is that we have just the most insanely giving and generous and compassionate community of athletes that they don't live next to each other. They live across the country. They even live across the world. And blindly, without wanting to be recognized, said, here is some money, put it to good use, and let's just keep helping people out.
Mm,
Obviously,
yeah,
and
that's
that, yeah, that
beautiful.
to me, that was it. It was just like, and that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to take care of each other. Like, if we all just look out for each other, we will be fine. If we only look out for ourselves right now, then we're doomed.
Mm,
But we should all, if we, that's all we do. If we just look out for each other and take care of everyone and not just ourselves, then we're going to be okay.
mm. I think that's a really good example, and I can't even come close to beating that. So I think what the message there, though, is that it's sort of a general thing. Is like, I do get the sense that most people are kind of gathering. This is something that we're all in together. That kind of
Mm-hmm.
principle in general, and in a direct correlation we look at, people are, I thought people would be furious about, races getting canceled and everything like that, but I think there's just a general like support line that's sort of flooding through the whole community and everybody's sort of understanding. It's like, hey man, I've been there. I'm there too, and it's sort of like a little bit of I guess the support piece is, it's interesting you put it that way because it's low key support. And a lot of times I think that's what happens, It's sort of like the little moments that no one sees because they're not publicized that become the big moments. It's like we always remember, people that helped us and or people that hurt us. And we just remember both, and it's sort of like there's a lot of that subtle help going on and just support system, whether it be through our Zoom calls or just connecting people or trying to, hook up with group trainer rides or whatever it is. And everybody's just trying, and to me, that's like, that's sort of just that human spirit at work. And it's sort of humbling, really.
I was listening to an interview with Mark Cuban. It's been like 3 or 4 weeks, and he was saying that huge businesses and corporations right now, how they treat their employees and their customers right now are going to define them for the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
And I think that's so true. And going back to what you said, it's like, there's going to be a very fine line where you're going to be able to see and remember the people that you thought were selfish and the people that you thought were selfless during this time. And you're going to look back on those with, with either one experience or another. And how do you want to be remembered during this time, as the judgmental, negative complainer that was selfish? Or do you want to be remembered as the person who was positive and uplifting and encouraging and selfless? Like, you get to make that choice. Nobody else. You get to make that choice. And
Mm.
that's how you get to create other experiences for other people.
Yeah, man, it's that time, this is when you really want your true self to shine and don't let it kind of go off the rails. And it's easy to do that. And I love what you said there because it's like that's what people are going to remember about you. It's time right now to, you know, be that selfless person, and that stuff goes forever. Selfishness goes today or whatever. It's like lay that foundation for who you are right now and just own it.
Straight up own it. Next question, Sherry Erickson, one of my favorites. One of my favorite questions. I'm sure you're awesome, but I can't label you one of my favorites quite yet. How often should someone retest their FTP? I've been avoiding doing this because it's so difficult. Thanks. FTP is the most overrated thing that triathletes are obsessed with. It couldn't be any more overrated. It's we've talked about this on a couple of different podcasts. I have athletes do them on occasion, but they are not even close to the end all be all result that most people say they are. Especially if you were doing long course racing. Couple of reasons why. A, your 20-minute power means nothing in long course racing. It means nothing because most athletes, what they do, if most athletes that are totally obsessed with an FTP test, which is for most people a 20-minute test, a 20-minute test, so basically you're going all out, and then a lot of athletes use a specific calculation, create specific zones to create their training zones, and that's all it is. So people obsessed with that 20-minute test do training that's going to strictly improve that 20-minute test. A lot of athletes shy away from longer stuff or longer intervals that might not see a huge jump in threshold, but are actually going to make you a better athlete at 60 minutes, 90 minutes and longer, which is the name of the game. It's the power you can produce for a sustained period of time. The other things, I just had this conversation, we talked about it on one of our Zoom calls, and another athlete that I work with just went through this, is that so many athletes ruin their races, ruin them, just ruin them, and end up blaming the run, as like I think most athletes do, by poor pacing on the bike. And that poor pacing on the bike comes from poor planning, and it comes from misread, misinterpreted, and failed tests. What I mean by that is you race in the arrow position. You race an arrow. So many athletes test and do their 20-minute FTP test sitting up, where you can produce significantly more power sitting up. So here's the rub on FTP tests and why I think they're so incredibly overrated if you look at them just as a one-off, is that a lot of athletes will sit up or they'll start an arrow, and as their power starts to fatigue, instead of just eating it and saying, you know what, if my power fatigues, that's okay. What I really need is a accurate result that I'm going to be able to replicate on race day in my air position for 2 hours to 6 hours, not just power for today. So their ego gets in charge. So what do? They sit up, so they can produce more power or maintain that power. So they're producing more power they won't be able to produce on race day. Or then, like a lot of athletes, they start standing up towards the end. I got to really hammer it out. I got to mash out. Again, easier to put out power. So they get this grossly inflated number to start from a position that they're not going to keep on race day, and then they multiply it by 0.95 with 95%, and that's what they think they can hold for an hour. That's how they establish their zones. So not only had they grossly overestimated it with their positioning and by sitting up or standing up, but then they've also grossly overestimated their ability to hold that wattage for 60 minutes. I always tell athletes to do it in arrow position because you're going to race an arrow. Why do it any other way? And then we multiply by anywhere between 0.91 and 0.93. It's just very important to understand these things. So if you look at an athlete who does it sitting upright and who does it standing up, they're creating not just higher power, but then they're also probably using a higher percentage. So their zones might be 25, 30, 35 watts difference. Overcompensating, like just way too high, overestimating their actual strength and power. Then they use a specific calculation, or they do this, which is a lot about. I just figure out why I can't hold the same power in races. Oh well, because you're in your arrow position. Can you produce as much power in arrow? Not for long periods of time for most people because your body. Are you more arrow so you're faster? Yes. But that's that. It's so overrated. It's just incredibly overrated, and the fact that you take one day and one test, the pressure of that to perform, and then you basically say it's a pass or fail, and then you dictate very specific wattages for some people. I don't ever give specific watts. I give duration, or I give ranges, like between 220 to 255, whatever you're feeling this day. Use that. Use the huge range, but don't be married to it. Don't think it's the end all be all. Some athletes that I work with, they might test once a year, maybe. Some athletes might do twice, and a lot of athletes just don't ever. You don't have to test to see progress. So, Sherry, I love you. You can be one of my favorites now. I think it's incredibly overrated. I would test 2 times a year. I would test when you go inside and when you go back outside.
Mm.
Everything else you can see. I mean, everything else you can see if you're paying attention to numbers. Everything else you can see, through everything.
Oh man, just from my perspective, a guy who doesn't really, use power
Doesn't
that much,
doesn't
yeah,
at all. Yeah,
doesn't at all.
yeah.
Has I've experimented with it, but like, and as a former TriCalc addict, I just think about it too. It's like you're so on with that aero position thing, and it's like a whole different element. And then, like, if you can go out and warm up for 20 minutes and then just go crush something for 20 minutes, that really doesn't tell you shit after you've swam for 2.5 miles. And what I mean, like, it's unrealistic to me in a sense of, like, okay, let's, because I used to do that. I would, in TriCalc, I would say, oh, I can swim this, I can bike this, I can, and these are all individual pieces that aren't working together. So there's that fatigue factor, and is it realistic that and then all of a sudden you're chasing a carrot that you can barely hit half the time, and then building fatigue, over fatigue, and exhaustion into your whole training plan. It's just a weird one. I mean, I think that, do you ever, well, you do that, but you go by ranges. So that makes so much more sense to me, just from the perspective of, like, okay, some days I'll feel like I can push that up higher. And those are the days when I can genuinely get stronger and improve my cycling based on being stronger. And instead of, like, going off a cliff because I'm trying to hit a number. So
Well, and you
I
always
just
have
always err on the side of, like, caution on stuff like that.
and you always have to, and like the other thing that I absolutely hate about it, and I had this conversation with a different athlete last week, was that for at least for us, the athletes that we work with, we run a lot. We run a lot. We run 4, 5, 6, some athletes 7, 8 times a week. We run that way because running is important. Running is, I think, the most important leg of racing. It's where people walk or people run their way to the finish line and pass everyone. It's also one that needs to be done frequently. So athletes are never going to see, in my opinion, just constant significant jumps in FTP, because we're never in a 20-minute test, short power, because we're never going to stop running enough to where you can bike hard enough to see those short-term, shorter interval, shorter intensity gains. What a lot of athletes do, which is a huge mistake, and this is how I explained it to Chris last week, was that what a lot of athletes do is they will, like, almost taper for a test. They will taper. Like, they will take like a week of, like, super easy workouts to make sure that they're freshest they can possibly be for their test. They
Mhm.
will cut back running, they will cut back everything, they'll do a test, and then they go out and they hit these numbers, and then they create these ranges, or even these specific numbers. Like, a lot of coaches give you like an exact number to hit, which I think is just crazy. And then what happens is you add back in all of your regular stress, life stress, swim stress, run stress, and your body's going to be working under the same levels of fatigue that it's used to. Yet you're asking it to hit the same numbers for a bike test you did that's probably already overestimated, plus was rested. That's why it's also so incredibly hard, and athletes find themselves overreaching, getting burnt out on the bike, is because they grossly rested and overinflated their number. And then once you add in, a good amount of run frequency, like for us is 4, 5, 6, 7 days a week, is your legs are going to be so heavy and carrying so much fatigue, you're just not going to have that kind of pop. So you're going to wonder why you can't hit these specific numbers. Again, it's just, there's a lot to take into context of it. I think it's incredibly overrated for most athletes, because they put way too much stock on using that as a measure of improvement and success versus just doing and sticking to the basics.
Yeah, man, I would almost say, I mean, like, my gut feeling on something like this is, I would almost say, like, especially now when there's really no races out there and we're dealing with all this extra load of subconscious stress and everything, I would almost just take 10 points off that bad boy right now. And then when you get more out of, like, psychologically being able to hit your zones and things like that and staying, you know what I mean? I'm
A
just
lot of
spitballing
athletes
there,
mail it
dude.
in. A lot of athletes mail it in when they see they can't hit a number they want. They don't want it. They can't hit. They mail it in. I
Yeah,
didn't have
I guess that's exactly what I was
success.
getting at. Yeah.
Success in a bottle, man. Success every day.
So I didn't have it
Setting
today or
yourself up
whatever.
for
Oh,
success. Yeah.
I didn't have it. I just kind of just spun or whatever. So it's like, that's why I always say, it's like, go, that first interval, just kind of ease into it and just see where it is and feel it out, because, like, if you try to come out of the gate and just slam a number right away. That seems like a recipe for disaster to me. If you're not, in the mind space and you're feeling tired, whatever it is, it's
Mhm.
like let's just be in the ballpark here today. It's no sense in climbing, Barton Road or whatever the hell we got to do.
Next question.
Or
It's a good
Bartle.
one. Chris Sisk. He says, let's hear it. 2 truths and 1 lie. I don't know if I can do that. Real question. If you could do or relive one race you have done, which one and why?
Mm. Me?
Yeah.
Well, this one's pretty easy. It would have to be 70.3 New Orleans. I feel like that's the only race that I haven't hit at least my ballpark expectations. And it was just
Want to relive it? It doesn't say you want to relive that day. It doesn't say you get to repeat it. He says relive the day.
oh, relive it?
Yeah, relive it. And I remember New Orleans. I wasn't there, but your mom was texting me, and I know for a fact that you don't want to
Oh no, I
relive that
definitely
day.
don't want to relive that. I had a rubbing break on the on the bike course and I couldn't figure it out. Relive. I think yeah, this is going to go back. I mean, it's got to be the first Wisconsin with you up there, and or the second one was pretty good with you up there too.
Like, eh.
But I think it's that first one. It was just so electric for me, and just I don't know, going back home, a lot of people around. You were there. It was the whole vibe was great. I had a really solid race. It went perfectly, and I learned the art of suffering for once and for all on that back half of that marathon, and was just really kind of proud of being able to pull that off and keep with it, and just everybody was there, just I would say almost most people I loved were in the finisher shoot, and I got to hang out with everybody, and it was perfect in a lot of ways. So
Aw, look at you, you're all sentimental.
hold on, can we take a
Uh,
break?
man, which one
Hmm.
could honestly, like, I get emotional enough playing this. I get emotional enough playing this podcast. The one, and I was actually thinking about this the other day. The one I probably would relive is when I did Ironman Arizona in 2011. It was
That
for
was your
me.
first, right?
It was my second. The
Oh,
year before was my very first Ironman. I did Ironman Florida. I think I finished in like the high 13s or low 14s. It was just like a like epically brutal day. I think. Well, no, my first one was in 2009. This was 2011. And I came in and I had actually like taken like a huge break after doing Muncie that year, and took like all of July off. And then I was like, I'm gonna get back in shape. And I started kind of really figuring things out for myself, and really just did like 3 to 4 months of really focused hard training, and flew out there and didn't have any family, didn't really have any friends, and absolutely ripped it. It was that race where everything went perfect. My splits on the bike were super even. My swim was good. My bike, my bike splits are super even. It was 3 laps. All my splits were in like a minute or two of each other, so I paced it really well. I paced it really smart, and it was when I really kind of got this feeling when I hopped on the run for running by feel and using and starting slow. I started out the run, and at like mile 1 or 2, like, I mean, this is like, so obviously it's 2000, so this is like 9 years ago. And I was that guy like running out of transition T2 with like my Nathan fuel belt on. Like, I gotta have my fluids, and I got to like mile 1 or 2, and I was like, dude, this thing is heavy. I'm getting rid of it. Tossed it in a trash can. Not like I can keep it. I was like tossing. I know I'm gonna toss in a trash can. Took off my heart rate monitor, tossed it with it, and was like, I'm just going. I'm just
hmm.
gonna feel this out. And I wasn't like some like super experienced veteran. It's on my second one. And I was like, I'm just gonna feel it out and listen to myself and not obsess, and I'm just gonna run. And I ended up running like a really, for me at that point, a really really good marathon. I think it averaged like 8:30s, and ended up finishing at like 10:32 or 10:33 that day. It was just that day where everything made sense, everything was perfect. Um, and I've had family and friends that had like a ton of obviously emotional experiences at Ironmans, like the Louisville you and I did, the first Ironman I did coming out of getting sober, the Wisconsin race you and I did, where Hayden was there. But this one was kind of unique in that like I got done with the race. I remember sitting on a park bench, and I had like nobody around. It was just like dark. But I remember feeling this like enormous sense of accomplishment that I was able to do something like that and improve so much just listening to myself and doing it for me. And I found a lot of I gained a lot of strength in that. In just in knowing that I could do these things and I could improve and I was figuring these things out and I could make the leap that I did in a short period of time for my first one. And it was I enjoyed it. I really did.
Mm. That's
Next,
interesting. It's different
yeah,
experiences.
yeah, yeah.
One quick thing I want to point out is that I found that interesting that you tossed your nutrition and heart rate monitor, and it's kind of taken me a little bit of time to actually learn that. You know, we go out on these run courses, and I did the same thing this year, and I've done it I think one other time where I've just tossed it. It's like I don't know why. I think I need to like carry so much with me on the run, and it's not like you're waltzing off into the desert or something like that.
Yeah.
There's aid
Waltzing off
stations
into the desert. That's
every
right.
every
I
mile,
know, dude.
and
I
there's
know.
anything you would need there, and
Exactly.
it's just such a weird thing to think that I would carry that. It does, and it feels heavy. It's like, whatever it is, 2-3 pounds of extra weight that you just don't need to be carrying. So
No, man, it's
it's
just
the same
there.
on the bike, really, too. I see a lot of people just stack it up.
Oh, dude, it's like food truck city.
I know
For
it's
a lot
like
of these
85
athletes. I'm like, dude, just
gels
like
taped all over, and it just seems so messy. But
maybe, and for me, like the heart rate thing, it's funny that I think of it this way because my three best runs ever in events, ever, I wore my heart rate monitor to start the run and I took it off. Augusta 70.3, which was the next year after Ironman Arizona, I ended up running like 1:30 half marathon, and I took my heart rate monitor off that day and gave it to someone. And then 70.3 Chattanooga 2 years ago, where I ran up onto the podium coming out of Chattanooga 7.3, I saw one of our athletes, Renee Black and Shamika, took my sweaty heart rate monitor off. Didn't want to lose this time because I didn't want to just pay for another one. So I actually handed it. I didn't really hand it to her. I just kind of threw it at her. Love you, Renee. Appreciate you. And she delivered it to me later on that day in a plastic bag while she was wearing latex gloves. But it's just like I don't. So I'll never wear them again. It was like I don't know why I have it on. I think that day I had it on because. Oh yeah, that year at Chattanooga it was. Oh, they're all out this way, but it was really really hot, and so I was really trying to govern myself on the bike. But yeah, sometimes you just got to go with the flow. Listen to your body, listen to your mind, and kind of just listen to your gut and think, this feels right. Let's just go. Let's listen to what my body's feeling and not what some watch is saying.
all right,
Roy,
fine with
Rip,
me.
yeah, Roy Ripma. I think it's how you say it. I like that, Roy Ripma. Self-fit a bike or bike shop fit? Save money or no for first true road bike, new to biking? The most underrated thing you can ever do is get a good bike fit. Like I would put that in like the top 1 to 3 things that everyone must do is get a proper and not just a bike shop fit that's like, this is going to fit you because, hey, we got this 56 centimeters Cervelo in stock and hey, it just happens to fit you. So you fit the bike. Is to get like an actual professional bike fitter to fit you. Not only is it going to make your experience on the bike more beneficial and more comfortable, it is going to greatly enhance your run. I went through this entire process with an athlete, and to be frank, a lot of athletes that I work with that say, "Hey, I'm getting a niggle on the run, or my knee is this." My first question is, "Tell me about the bike," because so
Mm.
many athletes have very poor positioning on the bike from where their cleat touches the pedals all the way to their hip angles, and their hip flexors get too tight on the run. Well, so many issues on your bike, they don't manifest themselves because they're not they're not being stressed under load, so you can kind of get away with it. But then when you put them on the run, it's like, oh my God, any kind of mistake that you make from a position or geometric standpoint is totally exacerbated and exposed, so you feel injured. And this athlete was like got a new fit, and just like lost all power. It was like, I'm not comfortable, my hips are tight, I can't produce anything close, was getting super frustrated. We were getting the usual like, oh, I feel like I'm just not getting it faster, I'm losing fitness. And then basically what all we decided was to go back to their previous fit, and he's putting up the best power number he's ever put his entire life. Like there are so many positives, not just from being comfortable, but being more efficient, producing more power, but also being able to run better and just keeping you overall healthier. I would say a really, really good bike fit is a must have in the sport. I don't think a lot of things we have are must haves. I think a proper professional bike fit is an absolute must have in terms of your investment.
But how do you really feel about it?
Yeah, I'm going all in,
I
baby.
said, yeah, I thought you were just going to be like, yep, I think you should do it. But no, this is a passionate subject. It's interesting. I've talked about this plantar fasciitis I've been dealing with, and it kind of occurred to me because I also mentioned we were looking at my shoes, me and this body therapist that I know,
Whoa,
and my
body
left toe.
therapist? I didn't know
What's
you were
that?
dating somebody.
Yeah, right. It's yeah, we just talk about things a lot.
Mm,
And but we looked at my shoes, and my left toe was like really worn versus my midfoot on the right. And it started dawning on me that like I've really been protecting my Achilles. You know what I mean? Like if you can
mm-hmm.
imagine like hitting your toe and keeping that Achilles a little bit shorter, instead of like I had a sore Achilles is my point. And I think that has translated into plantar fasciitis, to be honest, because it's straining the whole things over it in a weird way. But I think that the point here I'm making is that as I've been riding my bike more, I think I need a fit because I think that is affecting my Achilles.
Mm,
So my running, I was protecting a sore Achilles, which led to
mm-hmm.
plantar fasciitis.
Right. Yep. It's
So
all connected, man.
yeah, that's the point I wanted to sort of get out there. I don't know the solution yet, but it is all connected, and it's maybe the least ways you would expect it
Yeah.
sometimes.
Emily Horvath, one of our athletes. I'm finally getting the hang of pushing intervals on the trainer. How do I best translate this to outside? It seems harder to control effort. Great question. We went through this on one of our Zoom calls, I think, and this is a time of year where I get constant questions from athletes where because we do a lot of intervals on our long rides. We don't do just we will occasionally we do a lot of hard work on the back end or maybe even the front end, the middle of these longer rides. And so it is, if you pick a route that's rolling or hilly, and the timing of your intervals or the intensity of them and duration might not fit the terrain, therefore making it really, really difficult. Well, the way that I a lot of athletes have is like, first of all, they have way too many data fields on their bike computer. Like they have like six, seven, eight. Like it looks like NASA mission control. You need a co-pilot by the name of Rain Man to even like discern anything that's going on your bike computer. Very simply, if you're going out, you're doing intervals. I honestly only have three fields on my bike computer. I do average power, lap power, and normalized power. And if you're doing intervals, I don't even look like a lot of people have power threes, power tens, which basically is your power per 3 seconds, power per 10 seconds. I think they even have power 30s. It's just way too much to look at, and especially if you're totally obsessed with like what you're going to hold, or if you have a different range. I always just look at what, because all that matters is like what you're holding for the lap. So and your lap would be your interval. So you hit the lap button. Let's say you're going to start a 15-minute interval, and your range needs to be between 200 and 230. Well, all I care about is that at the end of this interval, my average lap power falls somewhere in between 200 and 230. I don't need to see that I'm holding the exact watts every second, because the difference in terrain, the difference of the force you're putting on the pedal, the difference on the delay between your actual head unit and your power meter are going to different. There's going to be a lag and delay. You could be going downhill, you could be going uphill, there could be a tailwind, there could be a crosswind. a lot of athletes say like it's almost impossible to they run out of gears trying to do threshold work or any kind of hard interval when they have a tailwind because they get so much assist they can't meet it. So always just go for the intended result, which is what to average for the lap. And it makes it very, very simple. You don't have to look at what your number's doing every like 3 seconds, which I think drives people crazy when they hop on these virtual racing platforms and software like Swift. Is that you look up at every second, the number that it's showing you is basically changing. 180, 162, 140, 189, 200, 209. Like that would drive me nuts. So I just look at your lap and average power, see what that tells you, and that's the easiest way to see that you're getting in the overall duration of intensity that you're shooting for.
Yeah, in my limited experience with power meters, that was the one thing that absolutely drove me insane out of the gate. And I think that on a trainer, it's probably your tendency is to look at that number more. And I would suggest probably not looking at it as much as possible. And one of the things I like to do when I was doing that was just try to cement that feeling of what different numbers, watts felt like and things like that. And I was playing around with that and trying to get my pedal stroke complete and using it in a way, a constructive way, as in to sort of reinforce your feel for what certain numbers are. And that way, you can, if you're not looking at it all the time and trying to adjust it, you can kind of just have an overall sense of what that interval should feel like. And to me, that's super important. And because the reality is when you're on a trainer, it's so controlled and you can kind of just get in that pocket. But when you're out dealing with, like you said, the wind and the hills that come out of nowhere, it's difficult to, keep that number the same unless you really have a good sense for it and a good, that was that was the other great thing I learned from the power meter was like how much over my power I was going up hills, for example. And I learned I learned how to kind of back that off and stay within myself a little bit better while I was climbing because I was just sort of always an animal with my climbs. And
Always an animal.
I mean, part of that was because I really appreciate the workout you get from hills, and you always talk about
Hmm.
like work the hills and recover on the downhills, and a lot of people how they'll just kind of coast up and just in training hammer that downhill and then pass by you, and then you keep lapping each other, and then but it's like where's the work?
Yep.
Um, there's definitely something to be said for feeling how to get over a hill and keeping the momentum and things like that. But anyway, that's just my general sense on power meters, and I think it kind of aligns with what you're saying as far as try to nail that range over a period of time rather than to try and like just stick on a number. That's just so.
Absolutely. It's hard. It takes away the joy in it too because it's just hard to keep track. Joshua Venus, what is your insight and advice for athletes participating in or adding their own virtual run bike races during this time, and what can we learn from those results? I mean, what can we learn from them? It depends. I mean, it depends with every athlete. What can you learn from them? It depends on did you taper, did you not taper? I mean, generally, I think a lot of people are doing them just to stay engaged. I don't know. I mean, I think the your ability to educate yourself on what you're learning from a virtual race is very, very different from what you're going to learn or what you can learn from a real world race. They're just two totally different animals in terms of a controlled environment versus a non-controlled environment. I think they have a place. I think they can be fun. I have a lot of athletes that are doing them, and to be honest with you, I'm fine with it. Like if you want to jump in and do it, if it's something that's going to tickle your fancy, then do it. If it's is it now the thing you have to be careful about is that you're not crushing yourself. Like if you're going to go all out in these races, then you need to basically be taking it very, very easy the whole rest of the week. Like very, very easy, zone one, zone two, all chill, just relax, and then rip it on race day. Like that's how I would go about it. Look at it as a very safe, inexpensive way to race yourself into shape. Have some fun doing it. I don't think any of I don't think anyone specifically, I mean, there may be a few people, most people can't push or won't push as hard in a virtual race as they ever will in an actual race because it's just, there's no environment. It's like doing your standalone by yourself 5K versus going and doing it in a race atmosphere. Like, you're going to give people some race environment pace credit. You know what I mean? So I think it's got a point. What you can learn from the result, it's super dependent on the person, super dependent on the length. It's super dependent on whether they did it outside or whether they did it inside. Um, where they did it on ERG mode or they didn't do it. It's just there's so much to account for. But I think, if you're gonna do them, have fun. I wouldn't bury yourself every week, because I think very quickly something you become addicted to in terms of just crushing yourself and trying to do this and do that, and you kind of lose sight of the process. But I think they have a place. I think they're gonna have a place for the next 3 6 months probably, and I think they offer something positive, that you can have as long as you use in the right way. I think it would be be really neat if like because there's across the country there are like cycling studios and all kinds of places, like if they would have like um, days where you would have like 10 to 15 people come in and like do virtual races like against each other like in the same room. I think that would provide like a really cool atmosphere, like keeping your distance or whatever you feel comfortable doing or the state says, but like putting let's say it's the all males or all females or mixed day where you just have like 15 20 people come on their bike and smart trainer. You put on a course on like Rouvet and you actually like race the course that day. I think it'd be cool. I think it'd be fun. I think it's something that we're gonna need. But no, I think virtual races have a place. I think they are meant to be fun and keep you engaged. I just wouldn't bury yourself in training leading up to it. If you're gonna do them every weekend, I would use that as your intensity training for the week and not in addition to.
All right,
Yeah, you're gonna pass on because you're never
I
in
don't
your
know
life
anything about
gonna. Yeah, you're never in
virtual
your
race.
life going to participate in a virtual race. Derek Stone, will it warm up by May? Will it warm up in May? I sure as heck hope so, man. I went and ran this morning. I was like, where is my sunshine and warm weather? But dude, man, I hope it warms up, and I hope you're doing well there in Nashville. Mindy Mikami, lots of talk about unsupported, i.e., bring your own hydration nutrition races. Thoughts? Is it even possible for a full Ironman? Yes, it is 100% possible. All things are possible. I think, in terms of what you're talking about, I think they would probably do something along the lines of what a lot of ultra races do, where they have certain feeding zones or stop points where you can have your own drop bag and basically make it like self-serve, like unsupported, as in you do your own stuff. You stop and get your own shit. There's not someone handing it to you or doing it for you. You just do it on yourself to kind of um, minimize, I think, person-to-person contact in certain areas. All things are possible, and that's again like right now everyone is innovating to figure out a way to make things possible. But no, I think it's all. I mean, I think you're going to see small run races happening next month, or June. And people are going to find a way to make it work. Now, will people participate in them? That's a whole other story, but I think we're going to find out sooner rather than later.
I just had to laugh because I pictured myself being severely dehydrated as I got off the bike
Dude, I
for
bet you
skipping my own
right, dude. It's like,
optional
mm-hmm.
water stops.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know if I got 20 or 2 minutes
Right.
right now.
Yep.
It's
It's
like, so pick your poison, man. You gonna go get dehydrate yourself, or I don't know.
yeah.
I just say race on, man.
Race on, man. Walk
I
the run
say,
later. Bike on. Let's see. It's we're getting close to tapping on time here, so let me see if try and blaze through these and at least give like a short answer. Cody, what is the most useless thing triathletes often try to force into their training? I would say frequent FTP tests, as I said above. Um, Testing in general, I think it is wildly overrated. I think there's a place and a time for it. I just think it's wildly overrated. Do you have one on that one?
how about long runs, man? Like excessively long
Yeah,
runs.
like 20 miles. Like, oh my God, give me a break. Unless you can do it in like, an hour and 5 minutes. Next question, Chris Brewer, would you be open to regional training camps? How many people do you need for it to make sense? We've actually had quite a few people contact us about doing camps in different places, and we're open to everything, as long as it makes sense for us, in terms of like connecting with people. So if that's something that you're interested in, we have a lot of super popular and they always sell out camps here in Tennessee, and obviously we'll be offering even more camps and opportunities once we open up our training center. But yeah, if you have any requests or just general questions, we never say no right off the bat. So be happy to talk through that. You can reach out to me directly, Chris, or anyone else, C26coach@gmail.com. And if there's something there, there's something there. Um, Robbie Simone, can you get stronger without a trainer? How often should recovery work, stretching, foam rolling be incorporated and when? Like shortly after a workout, later in the day before? Loaded question. You can definitely get stronger without a trainer. I think going back to like the bike fit being like one of those must-haves. I think a trainer is like one of your best investments you could ever make. But not just because they save you time, but because they last forever. They literally last you forever. The recovery work, stretching, foam rolling thing, that's totally dependent on you. Some people need it more than others. I think before and after is good, especially after. You got anything
Yeah.
on?
No, not really. I mean, I've got a lot on it, but are we going to try and get through these, or are we going to
No, I
save
was
them for
trying
next
to get
time?
like one or I guess we could save them for next time. That's
We
probably
got a
good.
lot
Yeah, there's a
left.
lot of good ones.
Yeah. I like to do anything like that. I do it periodically throughout the day, the foam rolling, etc. But afterwards, I feel like I know that's always a debate. Is like, do you do it when you're cold to warm you up, or do you do it when you're warm? I'd like to do it after running or cycling for some reason. It just
Yeah,
feels better, I think, or something. And I don't know the answer.
very dependent.
Yeah,
But yeah, we can cover these. We can cover these next time.
let's do it.
That was fun. I always love doing this. We should probably do them more often. I think we just kind of forget about them. Or at least I do. So I'm glad. They're awesome questions. We will get to the rest of these on Monday, so don't fret. We'll get to them. Don't stress it. But great questions. We always participate. People chiming in and taking time to give us questions, and it's not only helpful to you, the person that asked them, but I'm sure it's incredibly helpful for a lot of other people that were listening. That it answers a question they might not even know they had. And I think that's incredibly important. So, but yeah, that was fun. I always enjoy doing those.
Yeah, me too. Me
You
too.
got anything else? Because I don't.
I don't. Just check out this online hub. You know, keep getting people coming in there. We really appreciate it. Go to
Yes.
C26Triathlon.com and you can preview the hub. There's a online hub tab. Just hold on there. There's a drop down. You can preview and then you can sign up either for $9, $29, or $49 through the end of September. A lot of good stuff, more and more going in there. And also on the homepage, you'll see if you know anybody that's just getting into triathlon or you want to refresh some of the basics, the new guide to Beginner's Guide to Triathlon is posted, and it's like 10 pages worth of a bunch of good information that will help somebody get started, including a training plan for a sprint and an Olympic. All included, no strings attached whatsoever. It's just free. It's just sitting there to
Love it.
read.
Sitting there to read, to consume for your enjoyment. And I would say that even if you don't consider yourself a beginner, there's a lot of information in there. And I think those are always like fun things to look through and make sure that you're actually like on the right track and that it's something you may or may not have overlooked. So yeah, definitely check it out. Give it a listen, or give it a yeah, both listen, watch, and read. It's very interactive. So check it out, and you can check out the rest of the things we offer on the website as well. Camps, community, and coaching. They're all there. They're all laid out. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, you can reach out to Mike, crushingiron@gmail.com, or you can always reach out to me directly, C26coach@gmail.com.
All right, my man. I really
All right, dude.
appreciate it.
Fun as always.
Yep. Thanks.
All right.